Yes, my name's Tom Cherrett. I'm a Professor of Logistics and Transport Management at the University of Southampton in the Transportation Research Group. Okay, yeah, so the last mile, in terms of its importance for last mile logistics, if you look at our e-retail take-up at the moment, it's growing at about 12% per annum. So we're increasingly buying more stuff online, and we're moving to an era now where it's more delivery to person rather than to place. If you think of rather like Uber, seeing where a package is over the last 500 metres, we're more inclined now to have stricter demands on where, and not only when, but where we receive items. So couriers have got to look at that in more detail, and it's an increasing problem. We're becoming more demanding in where we want things. And that's all about the quality of service. You know, retailers, part of the retail transaction is not only the product, it's the quality of the actual service that's provided, and that's the last mile. It's a key component. And the other major thing going forward is returns. It's something that's the hidden thing in the closet. It's things like Amazon Wardrobe. We're now able to sit at home, get masses of stuff delivered to us, which we're going to try on in the comfort of our own rooms, with the knowledge that we're going to send 80% of it back. How do we manage that? So it's not only delivering stuff in the next 5-10 years, it's taking it away. And we are quite unprepared for that and what the impacts of that will actually be. And I think the last thing with that is this same day delivery. I can now order things and get them within 2 hours, and that wreaks havoc for last mile logistics because you can't consolidate anything. It leads to less than vehicle loads and it makes it all more inefficient. So the ways in this will probably reshape the logistics industry, particularly from an employment perspective. We're going to see more what we call lifestyle or gig economy couriers coming in, and there's been a big debate in the press recently about the legality of that as a working platform in terms of a proper job for people, pension rights, etc. But we're seeing more people taking this up, and that has interesting connotations in terms of the numbers of quite novice couriers that we're going to have, so people who are not familiar with the urban environment. What that will do to the industry long term, we'll have more subcontracting, more individuals with their own private vehicles doing more mileage, etc. So that's one way it will impact on it. We'll also see more probably inner city consolidation points. Over the last kind of 20 years, we've lost a lot of logistics land in our major cities, and depots are going further away. So we need to supply people to these tight timescales. We need to have more points of focus for companies within cities. So we'll see more drop-off points and areas like that within urban cities as well. But also we're going to see a move to more sustainable modes of transport, things that we did 200 years ago. You know, we're going to see more walking, we're going to see more cycling couriers, just because of getting around, and the impacts of congestion are impacting on our ability to do just-in-time delivery. And I think the last bit is collaboration. So there's some interesting examples where we've got carrier's carrier. So, you know, you can't get into big urban cities because there's low emission zones. You need to drop stuff on the outskirts and have a third party deliver that in, rather than every man for himself trying to deliver to the consumer. So people like Menzies Distribution have got a very interesting setup in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, where they are delivering on behalf of about 13 carriers to about 86 islands across Scotland. So it's a very good example of sustainable last mile, where a third party is collaborating on behalf of other people. So the next steps, I think, going forward for urban logistics, and in relation to obviously the speed in which some of these concepts will be taken up, I think one of the key areas is the influence of things like low emission zones, congestion charging schemes. You know, several cities in the UK have been earmarked for failing emissions targets. They have got to think of new ways of actually allowing access to those cities. So we will see restrictions on freight vehicles of certain types. That will naturally necessitate a rethinking of how you deliver in the last mile. So we will see naturally more use of electric vehicles, more delivery friendly modes, the use of carriers, I think that's one key area. But I think we'll also see a less discriminatory policy towards freight. I think it'll be seen more as an essential service, which it is. So we will see more facilitation of things with local government, local authorities actively looking at aiding freight through drop-off points, through using local authority land potentially for logistics activity. The challenge with that is actually making it an open policy. You can't be seen to favour one carrier over another. So I think that's another really interesting challenge. And I think harmonising regulations across boroughs, if you look at London, the different parking regulations between different neighbouring boroughs, looking at how that impacts on freight and how that changes people's, the way freight companies operate is another key one. But I think some of this will naturally start in the next 5 to 10 years. It has to, because of the speed and uptake of e-commerce, and particularly with things like returns. It'll naturally progress, and you will have potentially rival companies who will naturally start collaborating with each other because that last mile part is so expensive. They will naturally, even though they're rivals, start looking at collaborative systems.